Hello everybody and welcome back to Slow Stitch Style. My name's Katherine and this is my little corner of the internet where I talk about all things making. I want to start by saying a big thank you to everyone who's commented, liked, subscribed to my videos so far. My October video in particular has done so much better than I thought it would, and it's wild that people are just watching me sit and talk about things on the internet. So yeah, a massive thank you. And also, before I get started on today's topic, I should say I feel like I'm on the tail end of a cold, or I'm hoping at least it's the tail end, so please bear with me. I may just have to have a swig of tea a bit more often, and my voice just isn't quite normally where it is, so thank you for bearing with. But yeah, today's video I wanted to do something a little bit different and talk about the topic of style. I've touched on in other videos on the fact that I use mood boards and all sorts of other things to help define my style, but I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive in my journey with style, what style means to me and why it's important and how I organise it. And I also want to really recommend, if you're trying to figure out your own personal style, I don't think this isn't the video for that. Sorry, I'm not here to give you like steps and advice. I will talk about my journey and hopefully you can take something useful from it, but it's not like a how-to guide for style. But I would really highly recommend Breathing Yarn's video series. She's done some about like colour palettes and also like finding your style, and I find those really helpful for me when reflecting on my style moving forward, and I'll talk about some of the topics she raises in those in that segment of the video. But let's get started with talking about my style journey. As a kid growing up, I loved clothes. I remember going to like my granny's house and doing Barbie fashion shows, and as a teenager, we had a market in our local town every Saturday, and there was a guy that used to sell magazines, and he'd have loads of really good fashion magazines from like Vogue to ID, Dazed and Confused, and they'd all be like £1, and I would just buy them and like pore over all the fashion runways, and like I just thought clothes were magical. And I loved, even at that very early age, of seeing these really strong visual identities from different designers. And I think growing up in the UK, we all grew up loving like McQueen and Vivienne Westwood, but I remember seeing a Valentino, I can't remember what spring summer it was, it would have been ages ago, where it was all these like lacy Victoriana inspired dresses, and I was just obsessed. So clothes have always been like, I guess I found them really interesting, although my style has been very questionable as a teenager. And yeah, I should say like, I went through the emo phase as a very early teen and wore a lot of black for a long time, much to my dad's dismay, and he really wanted me to wear more colour. I spent an awful lot of time as well in my early to late teens in quite a strict religious organisation, well, for 3 or 4 years, where like there was very traditional ideas of dress, and that women wear skirts, you have to be quite smartly dressed, going to like the house of worship, so to say. And yeah, so that had a bit of a influence on how I dressed as a teenager. And then after that, when I was sort of 18, I went back to sort of my core emo things, and I'm going to show you some pictures. So thankfully, my friend did a little photo album when I turned 30 of photos throughout the years, and she's good at taking photos. But so this is me at like 18. So kind of still kind of trying to live that emo alternative vibe, I suppose. And I don't feel like I really had a strong sense of style as a teenager. Maybe I thought I did, but looking back now, it's all a bit confused. Love of stripes was there from an early day, and there is lots of stripy things. So yeah, I kind of got a bit darker again when I got older, and then went back into wearing some more colour. So I'll show you one more photo in here. It's quite hard to find photos where I'm on my own. But yeah, I really got into, so this would have been probably like 1920 I was in terms of age. I don't know if you can see this photo here. where I'm wearing this dress and it's like burnt, ready, there's a sage green, beige, navy, mustard yellow, wearing orange tights, and I used to wear like quite a strong autumnal colour palette for quite a while, and also in my sort of late to early 20s wore a lot of sort of vintage style inspiration garments, so I'll put them up here. Again, lots of stripes, and yeah, that was kind of what I really was into at that time. Yeah, vintage inspiration. I was buying an awful lot of my clothes secondhand. Once my parents had divorced, one of my dad's partners loved charity shopping, so I spent a lot of my teenage years going around charity shops with them, and that's how I got most of my clothes. I actually, yeah, I've always kind of thrifted or made. So yeah, early teenage years, emo, into like this sort of vintagey thing, which I think kind of happens to a lot of emo-y kids. Into the vintage, you know, you still want to be unique. And then when I got to uni, I was wearing these sort of like autumnal, I say, shades. I was wearing a lot of like blouses and skirts with like a tweedy jacket. I went to uni in Herefordshire, which is very countryside, so I guess it was kind of like countryside-y inspiration. And yeah, so those sort of burgundies, greens, beigey colours, all of that. And it was in my last few years of uni where my style flipped, and I went from like this long wavy hair to cutting it into a bob, cutting even shorter, going very short, and then I started dressing like very androgynously. And I should say there was always an element of tailoring in my dress, and I lent even more into that. And the androgyny, you know, I enjoyed it. I kind of enjoyed that play of masculine and feminine. But then I started to get into a stage where I was getting misgendered quite a lot, and it didn't sit very well with me. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in like why style matters. But yeah, so very androgynous, and that lasted for quite a while. This love of tailoring, having short hair, presenting quite masculine in my dress, as opposed to, I guess, quite feminine before. And I think, again, sort of growing up, you're trying to figure out who you are. And it wasn't until lockdown, and I probably was in my mid to late 20s, that I got back into clothes making like really seriously, and like was making my own stuff to represent my style. And again, a little bit of a struggle to start with. So I think it's really easy, especially during COVID it was, to get caught up in these like sewing trends and making trends. And then you end up making all these things and then coming out with stuff that you don't really feel like reflects you. So I'm going to pop one image in particular I can think of where I made, I think it's a pinafore dress from Tilly and the Buttons. I can't remember what it's called. And that was kind of like the trend at the time, is these sort of pinafore dungaree style outfits. And I made dungarees as well from Closet Core. You know, they're all the style, and I just made them, and I just, after wearing them, I was like, I don't feel like myself in this. Like, it doesn't feel like me. And that's quite a hard feeling to try and explain. And I also remember making a Hannah wrap dress. I think that's made by Hannah London. I hopefully will correct myself if I'm wrong. I remember making this wrap dress in this beautiful floral fabric that was really popular, and it's kind of like what everyone was making. And then I put it on myself, and I was like, again, I don't feel like myself. And that can be a really hard journey with making clothes, because it's not like going to the shop where you can try something on and, you know, even if you buy it, you've just spent the money and you can take it back. But with sewing or knitting, you have to buy your materials, you then spend hours making the thing, and when you try it on and you don't like it, it's so hard. And I think there's a criticality with making your own clothes that doesn't apply when you buy stuff. Like, you will accept a level of faults and flaws from bought clothing that you will not accept in your handmade wardrobe. And yeah, that was really hard. But I guess coming out of that, I think through making my own clothes, and especially over the last year and trying to slow down a little bit of it, I think it's so easy as well to get caught up in the rush of making and that dopamine hit of buying more fabric, buying more patterns, doing this, doing that, oh, more. And it's so easy to get lost in that, but slowing down, and I think as I've gotten older, kind of realised more about myself, you get more comfortable with who you are and the different sides of yourself, and trying to figure out how to amalgamate them all together to find your personal style, or what style means for you. So yeah, so that's where I'm at now, I'd say, and I feel like I've kind of hit that sweet spot of, you know, feeling more like I know what I like and where I want to go. But I guess I feel like I've maybe boxed myself in and restricted myself a bit too much over the years, and I want to expand more. And I'll talk about that later. But next up, I want to talk about why I think style matters so much and why it feels really important to me. But yeah, so style to me feels like this real strong symbol of identity. And I know that isn't the same for everyone. Some people just wear clothes and it's practical and that's it. There's no other ulterior motive. But for me, clothing and dress are these really fundamental ways that we can portray who we are, who we want to be, how we want to be seen, how we want other people to interact with us and perceive us. All these really complex things. And I think some of it is very overt and obvious, and I think some of it's much more subtle. And as I mentioned about the identity, for me, I had those moments of particularly when going into this more androgynous thing, trying to reconcile this idea of femininity and masculinity and what those things meant to me. I grew up not feeling like a pretty girl and not feeling very girly, to be honest. I was quite a tomboy for most of my life, and I had moments of being like ultra feminine and also not feeling particularly comfortable with that, or comfortable with the idea of like, because I was female I should therefore like these things. You know, one of those was the colour pink, which I have now got back to terms with, but there was a lot of trying to figure out who I was through dress as well. And as I said, like, being misgendered was this thing of like, oh, well, I don't feel fully masculine, but I also don't feel fully female. I do use like she, they pronouns. I think I exist somewhere in the middle, probably more on the feminine edge. But I've taken a lot of time to get there. And I think that's why, you know, clothes have either helped that or kind of made me realise that's not what I want. And also I think there's a level of aspiration with dress that I do really find quite appealing. And I think of like the 1940s sort of teddy boys. My granddad was a bit of a teddy boy, but my granddad was also this person that was born very working class and made something of himself. And I think I like this idea of dress being your aspiration. And I guess I've always kind of found that appealing as well in terms of a sense of style, like this smart dressing. I've always felt more comfortable when I'm dressed smart or when I'm like put together. I don't like feeling too casual, and I'm not sure where that comes from, but it helps me to feel good about myself. And that's another really good thing about style, is when you find something that feels like inherently yourself, you feel better about yourself. You feel braver going into the world, more confident going into the world. And your clothing has, like, I think, such a massive power in that, and can be like your shield and your armour almost, whether that's literally or not. So yeah, I can kind of wax lyrical about this and how much I think clothes do matter. And I said, not everyone feels like this. I have a partner who, you know, he's really into design, really colour away, you know, he was an illustrator for a long time, but can sometimes that doesn't necessarily always apply back into the fashion, and I care more and can get sometimes frustrated because I said clothes are really important. But if you even step away from that very like emotive side of style and identity, there's a real practical benefit to understanding your style and having a core sense of style. And I really want to stress the word core. I'm not saying that everything in everybody's wardrobe has to be like one thing and one style, but I think it's important to understand your sort of core style in a practical sense. And that kind of links back to that thing I was saying about when you're sewing or making things for yourself, and it's so easy to get caught up in these like trends and this thing over here that's happening and this thing over here, and you chase a path, and then you make that thing and you bring it back into your wardrobe and it doesn't fit at all in any way. Maybe that's the colour, the style, like you can't wear it with anything else in your wardrobe. And that might just happen, you know, and you might be okay with that if you're transitioning your wardrobe to get to your endpoint style. But it can help. I think having a sense of style means it helps you stop getting led astray. And that sounds quite harsh and strong in wording, but it helps you to kind of like integrate things into your wardrobe better, or create these like capsules where everything goes, and then when you're dressing it's so much easier. I will say I am the type of person that loves like uniform dressing and having a very limited palette, so everything goes together, and I know that's not everyone's style. Like I watch a lot of YouTubers, is it Sequin Girly? Like the total opposite of my style, but I love her strong sense of style in what she does and how she dresses and presents herself. Like it's fantastic, and you know, but she understands herself and what she loves and what she likes, and that's what I think is important. It's like understanding what you love and like and creating things that all go together. So, you know, if you're a person that loves print and pattern, find print and patterns that go together. If you're a person that loves minimal dressing, find your core things that you like and make that. But I think having that sense of style, having that core thing about like how you want to dress, helps you to wear what you have and stops you getting into that situation where you spend hours of time making something, loads of money on fabric or new garments, and you buy a thing and then you don't wear it because it doesn't integrate in with your style or your lifestyle. And this is in the Breathing Yarn series of style videos. One of the really helpful things that she talked about was understanding like your lifestyle. And that was something I think for a while I hadn't really been thinking about. Like, what is your day made up of? Like most of my day is spent either at work or sitting in pajamas as soon as I get home. I don't really go out in the evening, so I don't need like party dresses. That's not who I am. You know, if you're really into walking and you spend all of your weekends walking, like maybe you should be investing in walking gear. Like it's understanding those things about yourself. And I should say in terms of my lifestyle, so I work in an office, I should say. I'm a manager. It's not super corporate, but I do like to dress smart. But there's like a smart casual, I'd say. I could probably turn up in a t-shirt and a pair of jeans and that's fine. But I don't feel like myself in that. And how I dress for work is how I dress outside of work. So I don't really have that differentiation of needing a work wardrobe and an at-home wardrobe. Although I will say, you know, like I did, as soon as I get home from work, I often put pajamas on. So I do make a lot of pajamas and like loungewear that I then would never go outside the house in if I don't have to. But I think understanding that about yourself is really important too. So making things that fit your lifestyle, but also making things that fit in with everything else that you own or you want, where you want to be, is really important. And I should say that because, you know, I talked about with my style, it's a journey. I think there's always going to be an aspect of it morphing and changing as you get older, as your lifestyle or your situation changes. Like, you know, if I had kids, my whole lifestyle would change and how I would need to dress would change. If I didn't work full time, I might dress in a different way. You know, these things morph and change. Or if I had a different job where I was much more practical, like my first job, I worked in an outdoor place and I was standing in like a shed in the woods kind of most of the time. So I dress very differently to how I do sitting at a desk in an office most of the time. So your style has to change and adapt, and it changes and adapts as you get older. And in that journey, you'll have lots of transition times. And I should say, I do feel like I'm still in a transition time, and you might end up making something that doesn't fit with quite where you are now, but it's where you want to be. And it's about bridging that gap, I suppose, as well. So although I talked about, you know, you don't want to waste time making stuff that doesn't fit in with your wardrobe, if you know it's where you want to go, I think that's fine. I think it's when you're not sure of anything and you're just sort of chasing lots of different aims, that's where the issues come in, and that's why having that sense of style really matters. Hopefully that all makes sense, because now I'm going to talk about where I feel like my style's at now and where I am heading. I've been on this journey. I still feel like I'm on a bit of a journey, because I've got to a point where I feel pretty happy in terms of my style, in terms of shapes, where I'm going, and where I want to be. But I think for me now it's about allowing a bit more of a broader scope and not pigeonholing myself in too much. And I don't know if it's just the art kid in me, because when I was at art school and every time we'd have a project we'd do a mood board, but I am a mood board girly. So there's different ways I collate things that I find inspiring. One of them is Pinterest, surprise, surprise. So I do use Pinterest, and I have a style board on there for myself and also for Graham. And I have had that for years, and I regularly review it, take things out, add things in. What I think is interesting about that is that sometimes it will show you things that you don't necessarily always think are your thing, but you're drawn to. So one of the things on my Pinterest boards are like these shirts, often with like frilly bits, and I keep being drawn to that, and I think maybe there's something there that I need to explore and go back to. And I should also say, I do think style and fashion is cyclical. I think about some of the sort of sheer blousy things I was wearing in my early 20s, and I'm kind of making stuff like that now, like this blouse. It all swings around abouts, and I think you can learn a lot about yourself through the past versions of yourself as well. So yeah, that's one way. So that's kind of like Pinterest, I say, is more like the vibe and the feel of things. And then I use other things like Ravelry. I have wish lists on there for garments that I want to make, which I find quite helpful to just, again, see all together, because I'm a really visual person. So this is why that helps me so much. Seeing everything all on a thing, and then you can pick out like themes of what you're finding interesting. So a lot of my Ravelry mood boards for garments are often like quite plain, maybe a little bit of texture or some really light colour work. And the colour work is like where I get pattern in my wardrobe, because I don't like prints and patterns unless it's a stripe or a gingham or a check, which I think I've probably said before. Another place in terms of, so that's like my knitting inspiration and where I find patterns that I think I might want to make. And another place, but for sewing that I do that, is I use the website The Fold Line, and you can have a wish list on there. And again, I sometimes will just browse through a category. So the other day I was browsing through shirts, and then I would just save things that I think I like. Even if I'm like and ahhing, I save it, and then I can just keep going back and then just keep mulling on things. And again, this is probably something about how I work. I love planning. I love like really thinking and processing a thing. So I enjoy this type of thing. If you're more spontaneous, this might not work for you. But this is, I find my systems that I have in place allow for that long-term thinking. But also, if I'm having that spontaneity and I want something, I have this thing to go back to that helps ground it. So as I mentioned, use the Pinterest, I use the Fold Line website, I use Ravelry, and then pulling from all of those things, I then create a mood board, and I'll insert a picture of that just here. So I'm just also going to look at it on my phone, so I can talk about what is on there. And one thing I do find really helpful is I do create this on my iPad and then save it on my phone in my images, so I always have it to go back to. So if I am shopping for fabric or patterns, I can look at this and I'm like, does this fit the vibe? And that's all I'm asking myself. Does it fit the vibe? Yes, cool, buy it. No, should I really be buying this right now? And I find that really helpful. So the mood board is a mixture of sort of aspirational things that just give that sort of sense of where I want my wardrobe to go, but also then there are some actual things on there that I've either made or would like to make. So you can see the poppy vest is on there, one of my most recent whips. There's a porcelain sweater on there as well, and then the cable jumper. I think. So yeah, they're actual patterns. And then on the other side, there's this bluey white striped shirt with a frill, and that's a pattern from Fibre Mood. That's the Paulette blouse. Above that is a pair of trousers where there's like this stripe, horizontal stripe on the side and the vertical stripes on the front, and I have a pair of trousers that I would love to make like that. So some of my mood board is about like direct inspiration for things that I want to make, and some other bits is just like a sense of like then how to style things together and put them all together. Just have a swig of tea. I think the other helpful thing about having all the images together is you get that sense of colour coming through. And also I do include a colour swatch at the bottom of my mood boards. You can get your colours done professionally. I have not done that. I have decided that I like the soft summer colour palette, and that's what I'm going with. I've been umming and ahhing about getting my colours done, but I think there's something that I feel quite resistant to it, of someone being like, this is what suits you, because I think you're kind of drawn to what suits you, and I worry about them giving me another colour palette that I don't like the colours anyway, so I'm never going to wear them. But the soft summer palette is a real vibe for me. I really, really like it. So in that is this kind of beigey colours, into soft greys, grey blues, these really nice like rosy pinks into purples, into navy. And there are some colours on there that I haven't included, like white, black. And that's not to say I'm not going to wear white and I'm not going to wear black, but I think it's moving the focus away from those. And I'd actually like to start introducing navy as more of my base colour than black. So we'll see how that goes. And one thing I'll say about I guess why I like the soft summer is it feels like quite desaturated colours, and I find that really appealing. I always have. You might notice, like in this video, you know, I always shoot things a little bit darker. On my Instagram, my photos are always a little bit darker. I like that kind of like not in your face colour. So yeah, that's why I've gone for that colour palette, and I'm really excited about it. And that's like, the colour palette is a way I want to start expanding my wardrobe, because for a long time I've kind of really narrowed it down and was just wearing like shades of grey, black, white and blues, and maybe the odd touch of pink. And I think it was through making this jumper that I really was like, oh, I love this colour, and I would like to have more colour in my wardrobe and expand a little bit more and be a little bit braver with it. And some people will be like, the soft summer palette's not that brave, but for me, branching out into colour is a big thing. So yeah. I also, as I said, make a mood board for Graham, so I'll pop Graham's mood board in as well. And Graham and I decided, I work on it, and then I just sort of sense check with Graham that he's happy with it. He's always had like a very strong colour palette in what he wears for the whole time that we've like been together, and so we gave him like a soft autumn, and there's quite a lot of overlap between soft summer and soft autumn, but I guess where mine's like more bluey pinks, Graham's leans more into like these mustardy yellows, really nice browny greens into blue, and I'd say his is probably a little bit more textured, but this is probably more like an autumn winter mood board for Graham, and then his summer mood board might be the same colours but different vibe. And I guess in terms of style as well, one thing I really forgot to mention is my sense of style can feel stronger at some times of the year than others. When it's autumn, winter or spring and I can layer, and like layering is really important to me in style. Like I love putting on a turtleneck and a jumper or a coat, like scarves, accessories. I find summer dressing really difficult and hot weather dressing, and that's something that I probably really need to address as I move forward in my wardrobe next year. So there are things that I use to help me with my style. So mood boards, so pulling from all these different places like Pinterest, certain websites that sell patterns, places like Ravelry that sell knitting patterns, just looking at colour palettes and deciding which one's for me. But as I mentioned, you can get colour analysis done, and if anyone's had it and really rates it, then do let me know, because I'd love to hear about it. But another style thing you can have done is like a style analysis. So a colleague of mine had her colours done recently and also had a style analysis. And there's like style routes, and I just thought I'd share them with you, like the 8 core ones, because I think they're helpful principles to think about. So they're as follows. So you can be a mushroom, and mushrooms are neutral, minimal, simple, put together. Mountains, formal, powerful and professional. Stone, which is relaxed, sporty, casual, urban, practical. Earth, natural, bohemian, rural. A sun, playful, creative, bold, quirky, fun. Flower, delicate, sweet, cute, intricate, dainty. Fire, which is sensual, glamorous, luxurious and lush. And moon, dark, celestial, emotional and rebellious. So they're the different style routes. And my understanding is when she had a style consultation, she got shown lots of different outfits. She'd pick like her favourites, and then it would relate to some of these. And I think the good thing about these style routes is you can be multiple things. I'd probably say that I'm a mushroom mountain. So I do like quite neutral, minimal, simple, put together, but also that sort of more formal element, powerful, professional, which that comes through in the love of tailoring. But I think they're quite helpful for me just in having those simple words and be like, oh, I relate to that. But I find having the visuals around much more helpful for my visual brain. But yeah, I think having those guiding principles, like I know about myself, like I probably wear a max of 3 colours in an outfit. So like today, I'm wearing a white top, a pink jumper and black trousers. I couldn't then wear like a totally different colour pair of shoes or a totally different colour scarf. Like I would have to go matchy. And that's where I'm definitely that mushroom in terms of I like it simple. I don't like too many colours together. There are other people that can rock loads of different colours. I'm just not that person. And I think, again, it's realising all these things about yourself, and that's why it's really important to take the time and have a think. But yeah, I think that's all I've got to reflect on for today. Hopefully it was of somewhat interest to people. And as I said, I'm not here to preach about how you should approach your own style. For me, style is a really personal journey, but these are just principles and frameworks I use to help me, because it helps me with my making and my pursuits of my handmade wardrobe, and making sure that I'm not wasting time, wasting money, wasting emotional energy on making things that don't work out. And another reason why I wanted to do this video is because as we're nearing the end of the year, I really want to cement like my vision of where I want my wardrobe to be. And over the next couple of months, I think I am going to be reviewing all of my handmade wardrobe items and figuring out what's working for me, what's serving me well, and what things I might have to say goodbye to, ready for the end of the year. And then I can start planning for 2026 makes. And as I said, I love planning. I think it's one of my favourite bits of the making process. I used to get told off at uni quite a lot for loving that ideas and conceptualisation phase and never moving forward into actually making anything. So yeah, there's definitely something about me that loves this phase. But again, it's just making sure that I'm as well equipped as I can be to move forward, and make sure that I'm getting the most out of my making time and making things that I am actually going to wear and treasure and love. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. So I've given you a little tease of what will come up over the next couple of months in terms of video content. I think I might split it up into reviewing my sewn items and reviewing all my knitwear. And then also sprinkled in amongst that will be a couple of vlogs as well, which will probably land at the end of each month. So thank you for watching this video. As I said, I hope it's helpful. If there was anything in particular you really liked, let me know in the comments below. If you can give this video a like, subscribe, leave a comment, it really does mean the world to me. It's wild that people are watching these and seem to be enjoying it, and I love chatting with people in the comments. So I'd love to get to know you. So yeah, do comment away. And thank you again for watching this video.